There's two types of dentists in the world: dentists that don't like to see blood and dentists that are okay seeing blood. What do we mean by that? Well, when we're working in the space of dental implants, after the implant's placed and the tissues have healed, there's somebody that has to build the final crown. And typically that is a restorative dentist or a prosthetist. And those people are either going to fall in category A or category B. So they're going to be okay with seeing blood, or they're not going to want to ever see blood. Okay, so there's kind of like this two different groups of people, and the laboratories know this. They know this. So when you're working with your dental laboratory on your final prostheses, you need to communicate to them what kind of dentist you are. So if you're the kind of dentist that doesn't want to see blood at the time of delivery of your final crown, then this is where using, for instance, BioHorizons Smart Shape Healer during the healing process after implant placement, you place the Smart Shape Healer, which is basically a stock product that has a custom emergence profile, okay? If they place that at the time of surgery, call it 3 or 4 months later, the restorative dentist can literally scan it because it's a scan body. Don't have to take the abutment out of the mouth. And then in a couple of weeks, when the lab is done making the prostheses will more or less match that emergence profile for you, right? And that is a lovely way to work. If you don't want to see blood, when they come back for the delivery goes like this. You unscrew the Smart Shape Healer, you pick up the crown, you put it in, you screw it into the hole, and then you check contacts and check occlusion. I mean, the delivery is minutes long. And that's a lovely way to work, okay? So that's how you would work if you don't like to see blood. Now, if you're okay with blood, what you may do is a different protocol. The different protocol is this. You place, initially an implant is placed and a stock abutment is placed. So the stock abutments are typically small, right? They have narrow, regular, and wide. They change in height, but they also change in diameter. And so typically in my practice, I just put a 3 millimeter tall, regular abutment. So I don't want it to be too wide. I don't want it to be too tiny. I want it to be kind of regular, okay? What that does, and you can see this in your mind, is that if I have a small cap on top of my implant, it's transmucosal, so I don't want it to be buried. I don't want an operculum to grow over the top of it. I want to see it when they come back. When you look in the mouth, what's around your healing abutment? It's typically keratinized gingiva, which is what you want around an implant, right? And if you have a small or a regular abutment, you have a lot. You have a lot of keratinized gingiva to work with, all right? And in that case, what you would do at delivery, you would unscrew the abutment, and typically you'd have to get the patient numb. You'd have to give them a little injection, usually just an infiltration, and then use a 15 to make a slight incision on the crest, right? Take out the abutment, make a slight incision on the crest. You do not have to elevate. You do not elevate this tissue. What you're basically doing is you're incising the circumferential fibers. And thus, when you pick up your implant's profile, the emergence profile is typically wide because it's designed to look like a heart shape, right? Well, when that goes into a narrow hole, it's going to push that tissue out. So if you've made that incision, that tissue will blanch and it will push into where? It'll push into the papilla. It'll push up mesial, it'll push up distal, and it will drop into the vestibule. So we've wrote a paper a number of years ago. It's called the Apical Gingival Displacement technique, which facilitates this. Now, what's the benefit of this secondary approach? Well, the benefit of the secondary approach is that if you're starting off with a situation where you don't have ample keratinized gingiva, you just grew it. You grew it, the patient grew it for you during the healing phase, and you get to reposition it at the time of delivery of the crown. Well, that can really make a big difference in the longevity of the solution that you've given your patient, right? And that's a very important distinction. Now, what's the negative of this approach? Well, the negative of this approach is that you do have to get the patient numb. So many patients don't want to get numb. We don't do a block or anything like that. We usually just give them just enough, a little bolus, just enough to get past this part, and that's it. So it's a lovely way to ensure that you're getting a good band, a gorget is what we call it, of tissue around your implant so that the longevity is really good. Now, if we go back to the first method where we have a custom abutment, you could either do a custom abutment that you design chairside, or you can use one of these Smart Shape healers. that is large. It's large because it's designed to mimic the emergence profile of the root structure of the tooth that was just taken out. Well, when you use one of these, because they're large, you grow less keratinized gingiva. Stop. Danger. Warning, guys. Think about this. You can use these devices, and they're very helpful. They're very, very helpful and very clever. But you must, at the time of surgery, assess the volume of keratinized gingiva that you have at the start. Now, if someone else is doing your surgery for you and you're doing the pros, this is where you have to have incredibly good communication. You must sit down with a cup of coffee with your surgeon and say to them, guys, listen, when you do my surgeries, I need you to think about one thing before you do it. If you take the tooth out and it had a little recession because the patient was old, they had some periodontal disease, and had a little recession, and it's a lower molar, and there's no keratinized gingiva on the facial, please don't use a custom abutment. Please don't use one of these custom designed devices that's going to create a large metal or plastic device in that space, because it's going to be contraindicated. It's going to result in less keratinized gingiva to grow. And at the time that you go to do the final prosthesis, you put the final prostheses in, you don't have to cut them, but there's no KG around the tooth. Now, perhaps you want to do another surgery. Perhaps your goal is to, after they're done healing and you deliver the crown, you go, there's no KG, now we need to do a connective tissue graft. Maybe that's what you want to do. But in my practice, what I try to do is I try to minimize the number of times that the patient has to be hurt. I want to minimize the number of surgeries, but yet still give them the most incredible outcomes. And I find that this requires just a little bit of thought, a little bit of a decision-making process up front. If they don't have a lot of KG to start with, they're not going to grow it if you put a big obstacle in the hole, which is going to be a custom abutment or a large stock abutment. Okay, that's when you want to use a small one. When you use a small one, at the end, there is a little more work at the time of delivery. You will have to get them numb, and you will have to use a 15 blade. But remember, when you make these crestal incisions, there are no vital structures there. If you stay on the crest, there's no major arteries, there's no major nerves. You're not going to hurt the patient. And I don't even know that I've ever had anyone report back to me the night after delivery that they've even used ibuprofen. So, because what happens is when you place the crown in the site, you get a little bit of blanching. They're not even bleeding when they leave. And by the time 20 minutes goes by, the blanching releases, it relaxes because you've made the incision and it gives it room to move. It's like if you go to the Italian dinner and you eat too much food and you have to loosen your belt, okay? It's like that. You loosen the belt, then the pants can stretch, especially if they're, Lululemon stretch pants, okay? So it's like that. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm Dr. Robert Stanley, a Smile Engineer. Follow for more.